my original videos on this have received quite a fair bit of backlash, and negative opinions have been posed to me about the Dark Forces Remaster. So I figured it was time that I address some of the comments and concerns that were pointed out to me. One of the first things I want to address is that apparently Digital Foundry has made a video addressing almost apparently all the things that I've said, barring comparison to other recent remasters. They address the Force engine, apparently, and several other things, and apparently I'm not, exactly breaking new ground with my statements and opinions. I'm not going to watch it. I don't particularly care that much, but I figure it is fair to cover some, what I will call, irrefutable proof that this is not a good remaster. In fact, it's outright bad and should just be treated as an HD texture pack with controller support being sold for $30. So let's just start off real simple with the Steam charts from SteamDB. They show things like player counts and estimations on sales. As you can see, the Dark Forces Remaster, it does not particularly have very high player counts. The sales sit, estimated like 20,000 on PC for sales at the high end, and less than 10,000 at the low, which I think is fair for a 30-year-old game nobody's heard of that received no marketing basically of any kind and was more or less shadow dropped. If you didn't know Dark Forces existed or didn't have particular interest in Star Wars games, especially very old ones, you probably never would have known this was happening. So I'm not surprised that it didn't sell particularly well. However, Dark Forces was a very big brand back in the 90s and early 2000s, I would say. So the fact that this remaster happened and has not sold particularly well, and most of the backlash to it has been the price when people are willing to say that this was not acceptable, it's telling that this is, about where the sales figures sit. The game currently has like an 80-85% on Steam for its review score. But to be fair, I don't want to just, point out the Dark Forces Remaster in a negative light. I want to be honest and truthful in saying Dark Forces, the game, not just the remaster, just the game itself, is good. And I think the remaster definitely brings this to new players. I just don't think that the price of $30 is fair, and I think that the amount of sales will showcase that. So let's go with the Tomb Raider remaster, which also came out in the same month. The stats show anywhere from 75 to 200,000 sales on PC. We see a pretty decent number of people interested in watching it, in buying it, in wishlisting it, and it has, a respectable 87-ish, percent review score on Steam, which I think is respectable. I don't think there was all that much marketing, or if there was, I definitely didn't see it anywhere. But again, I, am a big fan of Tomb Raider, the games, and, I hesitate to say I'm a fan of the movies. That doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth, but my statement stands. They're very similar amount of marketing. They came out in the same month, and I compare them directly very often for remasters due to the fact that the quality is so much higher for the Tomb Raider remaster. Now, let's go with the Spyro Reignited trilogy's stats. Over 500,000 at the low estimation, and about 5 million sales for, the high, point for those estimations, and nearly 95% positive on Steam. With a respectable, couple thousand, peak for, concurrent players. With, a decent number of people playing it every single day, even now, which is multiple years later. That said, we have the Crash Insane trilogy, which also recently came to Steam. Also, almost 600,000 at the low end, and almost 4.33 million at the high end estimation, with over 90% positive review score. At the same time, I think it would be unfair to not point out a remaster that had similar concerns about its quality and its value pricing, I guess is how I'll phrase that, which would be the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remaster. Mind you, this came out initially as an Epic Games exclusive, but it's still sitting at nearly 90% positive, with over 70,000 players having been, bought at the low end and over 200,000 sales at the high end for its estimations of sales. Mind you, these are just the PC's charts, I guess we'll phrase them. I don't know that official information has been released. I could not find it for any of these games for console sales, so I'm just going off of these right now as my statement on sales figures. That said, this is not great. Now, I mentioned earlier the Force Project, which is a fan project charging a grand total of $0 for you to get basically the same amount of quality of life improvements and enhancements as the Dark Forces project, basically to get it running. Mind you, it does allow for mods, and it has a mod loader, and you can add those things into the Force engine to run Dark Forces with the improvements done by modders to get things like 4K support and controller support and all that stuff. What I have to say is that while some people have pointed out it's not fair to compare a fan project to a commercial release, and that the fans are obviously maybe going to put in a little more work, and they're going to be more interested, and they're going to have more incentive to make the game great so that, they can have the experience they want to have. I think we have to keep in mind they are charging $30 for what modders and the Force engine have done for free. And they've done before this point, meaning that I find it incredibly unlikely that no one at Night Dive had any idea that these things, existed. If you're going to be remastering a game and you're not even aware that modders have done this, you probably are bad at your jobs. That said, I also am not a big fan of Night Dive as a company. I feel like all their remasters they've done are, and probably will continue to just be, effectively texture packs with minor controller supports and upgrades, and they can claim that they hand redid every single texture in the game, which I do not find to be acceptable. Once again, when Aspyr just put out the remaster of the Tomb Raider trilogy, and clearly the quality level is far higher. With all that said, I don't think it's unfair to claim that this has not been a financial success. I don't think that they sold nearly as well as they were hoping to, but the fact that they charged $30 means that the hit to them having done this is very minimal. I think that the amount of effort they put in may have made this even more of a less impactful hit. Sounds bad, but it may have not had quite the impact on them that it could have had, because I don't think they put in the work or the effort necessary to really even have spent, all that much time and money on this, especially considering this was just shadow dropped, and I have not yet seen any information on how long they were working on this. But I would suspect not particularly long. This is just not great. That's about all I wanted to address with this. I just kind of wanted to put it out there that sales figures for remasters, and mind you, the highest of caliber remasters, are not even close when compared to Dark Forces. Like, it's just night and day, not as good, and Night Dive did not do what was expected of them. So, that said, I leave it to everyone, maybe go look into this stuff, because there are better remasters on the market. $30 is not an acceptable price.